Are you and your co-conspirators currently facing hundreds of charges in multiple jurisdictions for unpardonable crimes against your nation and its people? Are you having a hard time obtaining, retaining, and paying reputable representation for your many alleged crimes against decency and democracy? Are former staff, IT specialists, allies, friends, family, wives, and vice presidents seeking their own representation because they don't want to go down with your heavily leveraged super yacht? You might just be down and out enough to consider the law offices of Kvetch, Grouse, and Grumble.
At KG&G, we turn a brown eye to tax fraud, real estate fraud, defrauding cancer charities, defrauding veterans charities, selling secrets to hostile nations to pay for hush money to porn stars, inciting insurrection, seditious conspiracy, stealing highly classified documents, treason, and leaving the toilet seat up without flushing.
If your election donation grifts, questionable super PACs, and sus Saudi financiers will pay the bills, we'll take the case. At Kvetch, Grouse, and Grumble, your fuck-ups are our fortunes.
Recorded in front of a live studio audience with a real live host in Round Rock, Texas. It's the What's Update with Xander IMDb.
Season 5.
Not made by robots.
Welcome to the What's Update. I'm Xander IMDb. Here's what happened. A college professor with a clown fetish was recently outed by student journalists in Louisiana. Joseph Takash, a geography professor at Nichols State University in Louisiana, was recently exposed by student journalists for having, again, a clown fetish and recruiting young female students to allow him to paint their faces before openly admitting his rock-offage on social media.
That's not okay.
It's always something with this job, right?
Yeah, it is.
You know, I've been called a clown by more than one teacher or parent, for that matter. But I've never been painted on by one. I mean, what a bozo.
His wife?
The other kind of bozo.
Oh, okay.
Now, speaking of clown shows, there's a lot of crazy stories involving elderlies and politics lately. Miss Lindsey Graham, 68, narrowly avoided getting caught up in the Georgia RICO indictments alongside his former BFF, 77-year-old Donald Trump. Nancy Pelosi, 83, has announced that she plans on running for Congress again. Meanwhile, the screensaver from the great state of Kentucky, 81-year-old Mitch McConnell, goes on the fritz more often than a German water sports porn star.
Ew! Gross! Oh, that's nasty, mammal!
Nasty.
Craig, you were the last person to edit this document. What kinds of sites have you been surfing?
I thought you were doing like water polo or something. I don't know what water sports are.
You do too.
I have the snake internet, not y'all's internet. It's better.
All right, back to the news.
It's like the dark web, but the dork web.
Jesus.
You know, once the strikes have ended, this actually has the makings of a brand new sitcom. I don't know what the name of this shit show is going to be, but it'll definitely air on CBS. I can hear the theme song now. Mama's in the graveyard, Papa's in the pen.
Thank you, Garth Brooks and Xander.
As part of preparations ahead of the G20 summit, India has deployed monkey impersonators to scare away New Delhi's rhesus macaques, which are known to steal food and harass pedestrians. The impersonators will imitate the sounds of the larger and tougher gray langur monkeys to scare away the macaques. You know, I wonder if somebody impersonated Winnie the Pooh to scare Xi Jinping away from the G20. I actually heard that Don Jr. and Eric auditioned for the parts, but the Indian government officials were unable to keep pace with Jr.'s booger sugar demands and cleaning up all the poo that Eric kept flinging at the walls.
And his dad flings ketchup, so Pooh is not,
And also, they might be onto something here. Maybe, okay, so large birds are often the natural predators of turtles. Okay. So if we just have a congressman on standby to start making eagle cries, it'll snap McConnell out of it the next time he freezes.
Or scare him to death.
Works either way.
Okay.
Now, while we're on the subject of presidential offspring with substance and behavioral issues, the Justice Department says it plans to indict Hunter Biden on gun charges this month. The allegation stems from Biden's response of no on a federal form for a 2018 pistol purchase, when asked whether he was an unlawful user of drugs. At the time, Mr. Biden had a bit of a crack problem.
Crackheads!
He was struggling to remain clean. So, let me get this straight. A former crackhead who was not a government employee and whose father was not president at the time was busted for lying on a form about not being a crackhead to buy a Second Amendment protected handgun. Also, since when are the Republicans interested in background checks? I mean, haven't they voted that shit down about 1,000 times at least?
At
Yep.
least.
I tell you, I'd rather trust Hunter Biden with 2 handguns than Eric Trump with paste or sharp scissors. The Internal Revenue Service recently announced that they will start using artificial intelligence to help them crack down on tax evasion. Using funds from President Biden's Inflation Reduction Act, the project seeks to raise more federal money by rooting out complex tax cheating in hedge funds, real estate investors, large law firms, and private equity groups. I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid you can't deduct that. The truth is out there, folks, and it has a website.
Okay.
The Pentagon recently introduced a publicly accessible platform for government information on UFOs.
Cool.
The site already features a handful of pictures and videos for the extraterrestrially curious to peruse, and it will dispense officially declassified information on unidentified flying objects. It allows the public to interact with the All-Domain Anomaly Resolution Office, or AARO, a relatively new Pentagon office tasked with reviewing and analyzing UFOs. Wait, is this what the Space Force does?
I don't think so.
Rumor has it that the essential qualification to get hired by the Anomaly Office is the applicant's ability to corroborate their abduction story with the hiring manager. Also, when they ask you where you see yourself in 5 years, just look up. And finally, we continue our coverage of Dixie Pixie, living legend, and national treasure Miss Dolly Parton in our recurring segment, Dolly Watch.
Yeah, Dolly! Woo!
So, you know how it is. So somebody invites you over for a drink, but you have to turn them down because you're just too busy with work. Happens to all of us. Well, Miss Dolly had to do that with a princess. Turns out, while in London to promote her new rock and roll album, Rockstar, Miss Dolly had to politely decline an invitation to have tea with the Princess of Wales, Kate Middleton. During a recent interview, she told BBC Radio 2 that she felt bad about not being able to go, but her promotion tour had her so booked that she had to turn Princess Kate down. Dolly joked that she wasn't going to promote my rock album, so I had to say no. Celebrities, we're just like you regular people, am I right? Alright, stick around, we'll be right back.
Yeah!
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey, Zan.
Yeah?
It's really nice to have you home, buddy.
Huh.
We all really missed you while you were gone.
Thanks. That was surprisingly sweet and complimentary. Are you feeling okay?
Yeah, I mean, I guess, but, anywho, so I noticed that since you've been back, you've been spending a lot of time on YouTube looking at some gaming channels, so, what you been looking at?
Mostly stuff about how the current state of the video game industry is really bad at managing fan expectations.
I'm sorry, what?
Okay, hear me out. So something that's been on my mind lately is the state of the video game industry when it comes to fan expectations and how they manage them alongside production. These days, it seems that game studios and players have a bit of a toxic relationship going, with studios releasing trailers and announcements that hype up their game, the fans dissecting every single part of it and creating even greater expectations, and then it's on the studios to meet a release date, which usually brings one of 2 results. First, the studio could fall into the depressingly common mentality of release now, patch later, where the game is released too quickly and fans are disappointed and or angry when the masterpiece that they had been hyping up for so long turns out to be dog shit. On the other hand, the studio could commit to releasing a full and complete title, but delay it so much that fans become either restless or apathetic. I'll give you a few examples. One of the biggest cases of the release now, patch later mentality was the initial launch of Five Nights at Freddy's Security Breach. It's no secret that FNAF fans are unruly and meticulous when it comes to content in the series. I mean, just look at the metric assload of theory videos on YouTube. But a big difference between the old days of Freddy's and now was that Security Breach had a full AAA production behind it when the series was handed off to Steel Wool Studios. Unfortunately, the development of Security Breach was ill-fated, to say the least. The game was coming together in the early days of the Plague, and other internal issues resulted in a lot of delays. After waiting and agonizing over trailers, the incessant flea of fan expectations became itchy and started dogging on Steel Wool to just release the effing game already.
Did you just do a joke about fleas and dogs?
It's for the intellectuals out there.
Well, that leaves our audience out.
What? I don't know those. We should get some of those working here.
Intellectuals.
Shut up, Craig. Alright, back to the point. Eventually, Steel Wool was cornered into a release date. When that date came, the result was miles away from the quality that was promised in the trailers. Instead of the frantic horror and mysterious antagonist hyped up in the previews, the game was a series of inane fetch quests and uninspired minigames. Instead of atmospheric horror contrasted against an 80s-style backdrop, the game was bright and far too spacious, dropping any sense of terror. To top it all off, the game was riddled with bugs and glitches that ranged from walking through walls to unintentional time travel. It was clear that the game was woefully unfinished, rushed, and entirely unsatisfying compared to what had been advertised. The fans were perturbed, and the studio caved to their demands, but ultimately, everyone ended up unhappy with the outcome. However, this release now, patch later paradigm isn't the case for everyone. Some studios are committed to releasing their product in the best state they can, but this comes with its own issues. A long-awaited game in the Dark Souls Bloodborne-style community is a title called Black Myth Wukong. It's a game much in the way of From Software titles, using difficult combat against monstrous enemies from Chinese mythology, with the outcome of each battle being solely on your skill and strategy. The thing is, this game has been in development hell for over 3 years now, with there being at least 4 different trailers and a few exclusive demos being released for testers and audiences. For the type of irritation I'm talking about here, I recommend you check out a channel called Classic Man D for his thoughts on the matter. For what little information we have, it's clear that the developer Game Science is taking their time and ironing out the best game they can. The difference with this situation, however, is that they still have not set a release date or any expectations for when the game will be released. This lack of communication with the audience has its own set of irritations, but it solves a problem that Security Breach went through. The studio sets expectations by giving none at all. But this is a bit simpler for a niche title like Black Myth Wukong. It's more difficult when the studio is behind some of the best titles in a console's history, has one of the most iconic IPs in pop culture in the palm of their hand, and has already put out 2 games and several DLCs outlining their expertise and setting expectations for the new installment through the stratosphere. I'm of course talking about the upcoming game Spider-Man 2 by Insomniac Games.
Yeah.
Insomniac already proved that the franchise is in good hands with the first Spider-Man game for the PS4, its various DLCs, and the follow-up Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Yeah, buddy.
On top of that, Insomniac has been rather open and encouraging about the game since its announcement back in 2021, with 3 different trailers being released over the years to keep the fans excited. The thing is, it still came with the high expectations of other AAA titles, particularly after the recent gameplay and story trailers. If you look at the Reddit community for the series, you'll find endless posts scouring over new design changes and costume components, with fans either trashing them entirely or fighting in favor of them. It's easy to find people on Twitter. I'm still not going to call it X.
Nor should you. That's
You got people on Twitter messaging Insomniac's social media team, either begging for information or trashing the game before it even comes out. I mean, it's lucky that the studio seems to set expectations at the correct time, releasing those previously mentioned trailers close to the release date and attempting to set those expectations properly. The game comes out on October 20th, yet people are still bitching and moaning about every little possible detail, whether it's the identity of Venom or saying the mocap actress for Mary Jane looks old.
Some people
Rude.
bitch if you hung them with a new rope, though, you know?
Yeah, and also rude.
Mammals, am I right?
Right?
Yep, he's got a point. Insomniac seems to be an ideal example of managing fan expectations in the 2020s. Only release information when it's certain and don't give in to crowd pressure. I hope that this can serve as an example for future developers that feel backed into a corner and a clear message for overzealous fans to shut the fuck up and just be patient.
That doesn't sound likely.
A Zan can dream.
Yeah.
We'll be right back.
Yeah! Yeah!
Oh, hey! Thanks for joining us again for another new episode with the new format. We're still working out a lot of bugs, and most of those bugs seem to have taken up residence in the camera equipment. I mean, we had to go back to using an older camera for a while, and it's making us all a little crazy.
Crazy?
I was crazy once.
They locked me in a room.
I don't think we can get into that right now.
Okay.
It just kind of feels like one step forward, 3 steps back, am I right?
Yep, it really, really does.
So, there won't be a new episode next week because it will be the start of the Jewish High Holy Days. I mean, maybe we'll do a short video explaining that for people who don't know what that means. So, keep an eye out for that.
Yeah, that sounds like a really good idea.
Anyway, be sure to like, share, and subscribe, and as always, it is what it is.